quick introduction. So you have Andrew Lauder here. I'm the Director of Sales, East Region. Been with RapidScale for quite a while, almost arguably around the inception. So, this is a topic that has gotten a lot easier over the years, definitely as the adoption rate has increased and the maturation of the market, but it's still something that we run into on a daily basis. I know you guys run into it as well. So, the one way to help avoid any type of setbacks or holdups in moving some of your customers forward would be, of course, to be able to speak to any objections that they may have and be able to handle those objections with them when they come up, so that we can, of course, get in their shoulder to shoulder and start working. So similar to all, these are all being recorded. Again, thank you for joining, and we'll also be able to provide you with this presentation within the next few days, so you can go back and reference it. If there's something that you saw that you want to look back and reference to, we can have it. And of course, if you have any questions throughout, please send the notes over to Summer and Nikki, and then we can address those at the end of the webinar. Make sure we save some time for that. But again, just some good information. And of course, if there's anything that comes up after the webinar, we can address those together as well. So to start off, I'm not sure if anybody's been on the website lately or kind of seen, but we did do a rebranding of the website and a kind of rebranding of RapidScale. Just like anything else, any other business, there comes a time where you need to have a little bit of a facelift, and also kind of change the messaging around to what the business has evolved into, essentially, which is what we've been able to do. If you guys know much about RapidScale, you know that we focus a lot around the hosting and delivering of production environments. So being that we are a channel-focused company, we don't really get to choose the size of the customers, the verticals, and things of that nature. So we really built a very, first of all, robust portfolio to be able to handle kind of end-to-end what customers have from a hosting and delivering perspective, but also the size of the customers and the level of customization around the solution and the management and the support and things of those nature is all something that we've always focused on. So our new messaging is really going to be holistically addressing that in a way that kind of makes you, kind of helps paint the picture. And then again, at the end of the day, even from, very early days of RapidScale with desktop as a service and with the hosting, we've always focused on the applications, core line of business applications, being experts in those, understanding how they work, understanding how to make them perform, the best delivery protocols, things of that nature. So that's something that's never going to go away. But also, really, at the end of the day, it comes down to the people, customer experience, what their experience is like with us, how do we gain that trust, and obviously, how do we provide you with a healthy customer so you can then, continue to work with them and grow that relationship. So please check out the website. It's outstanding. Obviously, our team did a great job on that. So I mentioned earlier around the kind of changing of objections and what they are. Again, when we first started this thing, we were getting objections around, why would I want to go to hosted exchange when I have an exchange server here that's on site? Probably not going to hear that very much anymore. And even if they do hear it, you kind of like, it's kind of a tough luck kind of thing, because Microsoft is really dictating that change in general, and we'll kind of address some of that. But the objections have changed, and also the data around the market penetration and adoption is really there. So, just a couple bullet points. I'm not a big stats guy, but I think it is good to bring some credibility to the market and where it's at and what businesses are trying to accomplish. So, first of all, more than 1 of 3 organizations see cloud investments as a top 3 investing opportunity, which is interesting stat, because you're really talking about they're looking at investing in their business and making it better and leveraging technology to increase efficiencies, which they recognize as an investment on their end, which is pretty powerful, and technically it's the right way to be viewing this thing. And looking at some numbers from last year, this year, and growth projections, I'd be interested to see kind of where it's at too in 2019, because we kind of have what they were looking at, but obviously massive growth. I mean, 17.5% growth from where we're at last year. From 182 billion to 214, that's pretty massive. Obviously, a lot of that is around the hyperscaler space and with what they're doing there on the enterprise side. But I mean, again, it's about adoption within the space. When moving to the cloud, 71% of organizations look for speed improvements, 63 want greater flexibility, 57 hope for improved customer support. So, I mean, what does that say? They want better performance. They want more flexibility, which is, flexibility, scalability, that's huge. And of course, improved customer support, meaning that they've got lean IT staffs, they're having trouble keeping up with the day-to-day. All those things kind of factor into, so those stats do nothing more than really bring awareness around what is driving companies to move to a cloud or a hosted platform. So kind of understand that where can a business benefit from those and see those kind of, I don't call them weaknesses, but maybe gaps to do that. And of course, last, 94% of businesses report significant improvement in online security after moving their data to the cloud. That's pretty obvious, I think, at this case, because really, I mean, it's very simple, and we'll talk about security a little bit, but I mean, where is it more secure in the local, the on-premise janitor's closet, right, or local data center on site, or in an enterprise cloud and tier 3 facility with levels of encryptions and compliances in place in order to ensure that this can be the most secure platform that they can run to. Kind of a no-brainer. And you see that. I mean, that's one of the biggest objections that we run into is around kind of that security piece, and we'll of course talk about that as well. So, past common objections. Some you see a lot, some you don't. I mean, if you're having to explain kind of what the cloud and where's my data, I would be very specific on where the data is, right? It's in the data center. Where that data center is completely up to them. But I mean, that's an objection that you still see. Latency, huge one. I mean, latency shouldn't be an objection. It should be something that's addressed up front, in my opinion. And I always do this. Where are you located? Where are all your offices located? Where are your people located, right? And then where are we going to be having that called an executable file or an application? Where is that going to be sitting? The farther away, I mean, light can only go so fast. So the farther away it is, obviously the more latency will be there, which is why we, of course, built data centers across the country, geographically dispersed, as well as internationally. So get in front of I always get in front of the latency one very quickly. And of course, which is another conversation you guys like to have, how are you connecting? And that's going to have something to do with latency. We have data backups, so why do we need disaster recovery? Good, let's explain that, right? I mean, low availability versus high availability, pretty simple there. We need a provider who owns their own data center. I would just say, no, you don't. Or I'd ask him, why do you need somebody that owns their own data center, really? Because it's, at this point, it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, for example, RapidScale, we chose very early on not to be in the real estate business and kind of owning data centers. I mean, what does that allow us to do? That allows us to expand quicker. It's a lot easier to go put a cage up and procure hardware and go build out a stack within a certain data center than it is to go out there and go ground up. So, I mean, it's completely irrelevant to own your own data center. The same security metrics and same secure and same availability is going to be there whether you own it or not. It just helps the business be able to scale. Of course, we can't lose control of our data. I agree. You can't lose control of your data, which is why you don't lose control of your data when you move to the cloud. And then we can do it cheaper internally. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the pricing thing. It's a challenging conversation. That's a value-based play, and you're going to expose the reason why you're having the conversations around cloud and what the benefits are, as opposed to what it looks like to do it cheaper. Because when you're looking from going from on-premise to from CapEx to OpEx, having to go out there and procure licensing and having to upgrade licensing. So there's lots of things that go into play and soft underlying costs. But we're certainly happy to have that conversation. Again, it's a total cost of ownership is something that we typically do with a lot of our partners and our customers. And obviously being able to walk through that stuff and building the business case around it, cost is going to be something that's going to always factor in, especially if there's a financial mind or a leadership person that's helping to make those decisions. So getting into some of the objections. Security is never going to go away as long as these breaches are happening. And I mean, I just got an email recently saying that DoorDash was breached, and they got a lot of information, so I had to go in there and change my password. I mean, doesn't mean I'm not going to use DoorDash again, right? I'm not just going from Uber Eats to DoorDash because they got breached, but it's there. It's very known. It's loud, especially when some of the bigger companies out there are getting breached. So security is going to be huge. So, how do they know it, right? How do you bring a level of comfort around the security of their data and the sensitivity of that data in the cloud? So, a couple of rebuttals. Obviously, you can throw some stats at them, but 64% of enterprises agree that cloud infrastructure is more secure than old legacy. I was having a conversation with a partner recently who came from the financial space and there with JP Morgan, and I was talking to him because we've seen a massive shift in the financial space from regional banks, local banks, financial institutions, mortgage brokerages, all these financial companies that typically were very anti kind of hosted or cloud. It's been just a massive shift, and I was like, what do you think you can attribute that to? Because most of these financial institutions, their core line of business app, right, whether it's Fiserv or FIS, is already hosted within that provider, and they're just accessing it over a VPN. But what he says, JP Morgan, they made this big shift to a cloud. They went pretty much all hosted a few years ago. And what he was saying is he's recognized as kind of a trickle-down effect where they're saying, hey, the big boys are doing it, so why can't we do it too, right? So it brought a level of I think, comfort and kind of credibility to that space whenever you see those, those big brothers or those, those big companies that are under a little bit more of a microscope, actually make those adjustments. Another rebuttal: offsite data centers are equipped with enterprise-grade physical network security, bulletproof glass, right? Man traps. I mean, there's all types of physical security. You can't even get into our data center without having an authorized user call in and let them know that you're going to be coming in there. And even then, it's quite a process. If you guys, I'm sure most of you have seen data centers. So the physical security aspect is hands down going to be better than if they would be running it on site. And then another one: while you may no longer control the data on premises, you still own the data, the security measures safeguarding it. What does that mean, right? That means there's a couple different ways within this space that you can have the day-to-day kind of management. Whatever we're doing, we are not restricting access or data to any of our customers around what they're doing. If they want to go in there and make changes, they can. If they want to pull data out, they can. They can restrict what we can do, of course, and say, we'll handle this. We don't need you to have access to this. But there's by no means ever some type of pigeonhole type situation with us in a company where they're not going to have full control over their data, their permissions, and the integrity really of their business with what they're having. So, and that's, we're certainly happy to help you explain that and help them understand it. And then the last and the largest threat to security is lack of qualified professionals in the industry. So what does that mean? We got some security guys. We got some really, really good ones. There's a gentleman named Kevin Shannon who's very, very strong, handles a lot of our compliance. We also have some other security experts. Pretty sure that our security guys are going to be a little bit better than what they have or what's available to them. Those guys are very expensive, right? So whenever you do leverage our platform to run the environment, you're, of course, getting to leverage and kind of parlay off of what we've done from a security perspective to continue to keep our cloud and our business compliant. They also get to have that as well. So that's a big thing. And this also goes, it's not only qualified professionals on security, but it's qualified IT professionals is another one that you can kind of throw out there, because the talent pool is going to companies like RapidScale. They want to work for companies like RapidScale. And IT guys, they want to build up their own resume with bringing in cloud stuff. But the talent is going to be here. I mean, if you look at some of our guys, and not to sound either arrogant or boisterous or anything along those lines, but we hire very good talent, and they want to work here. Companies get to leverage those same guys. If they're doing Citrix with us, our Citrix engineers are their Citrix engineers. It's just an extension. So the talent's big, and for a company to be able to grow and scale, and of course not actually have to pay for those, and more just get them as you subscribe to the service. Next one, migration, huge. The move to the cloud is way too much work. Would I have to do it myself? So this is where it's all fun and games to sit here and talk about, okay, I have a problem. We put a solution together. We have a great, tightened up solution. We understand the applications, the specs to run it, the level of management, the other kind of ancillary over the top stuff that we can do for them. And they're like, okay, this all looks great, but how are we going to do it? How you bring credibility and comfort to a potential customer is by being able to explain how we're going to do it and who's going to be doing it. Oh, you want to move to 365. You're not familiar with 365. That's fine. We have literally in-house dedicated 365 engineers to be able to do this. Would you like to speak to one to talk to about what their experience is and what their plan is and how they know? I mean, that all stuff brings credibility. Moving a house is, obviously you don't want a company that's going to be putting it in the back of a pickup truck and strapping it down with ratchet straps. You want somebody that's going to bring in and cover it up and put it into a semi-truck and take it to the next location. And you certainly don't really want to be putting it in your own semi-truck and moving it, or your own truck and moving it, right? So that's available to them. We do full white glove migrations, and the statements of work that are around that are detailed, and they demonstrate the ability to get it done. They show how it's going to happen, timeframes associated to it, and that's going to help, of course, bring that level of comfort to them that, I don't have to be an expert here, do this myself, or I don't have the time. It doesn't matter. We do, and that's what we do for you. Some businesses still head in the cloud conversations with the mindset that it's one-size-fits-all solution. It's not one-size-fits-all solution. It's very much tailored to their strengths and their weaknesses and their gaps, and we fill those with more expertise and time and a plan. Virtualization, new technology tools have low barriers. Of course, we all know how software is leveraged to migrate applications over, such as DR software like Zerto, for example, lift and shift, clean builds, forklift, whatever you want to call it, how we do it. I mean, there's lots of ways to do this. I'm just going to breeze through these real quick because I kind of just went over them before as well. But again, the roadmap and strategy is ready. I mean, the statement of work detailed out, who's responsible for what, roles, responsibilities, timeframes, all that stuff is needed and has to happen in order to demonstrate the ability to actually make this shift. Again, our team handles the entire migration end to end. We have companies that we may just need help setting up a port on their firewall, stand up the VPN, give us domain admin, and then we can go in there and run and do what we have to do. And of course, we're always very flexible. There's very few migrations that happen where we've been able to cover all angles up front. There's a lot of, I don't want to call them gotchas, but we find some changes throughout the process. The flexibility and be able to do those is huge because, again, at the end of the day, I use the analogy. I'm sure if you've been on this call, heard me speak before, you probably heard this analogy before. But again, it's kind of another moving house. You don't want to move into a cloud environment, have a lot of people coming back over and over again. You want to deal with this stuff up front, address it, and have details around it, and have a plan to address it. So these are things that we take very seriously. Just for everybody to know, an agreement cannot be signed and put into the system unless we have unless it's tech approved. Tech approved means that we've seen people that don't know anything about the opportunity, zero, no visibility into it up to that point. It gets put in there, it gets put in front of them. They look at the solution, what is entailed in the solution, and then they go right to the statement of work and they make sure that everything looks covered. If they see something that's potentially wrong or something that was missed, they're going to either send it back and ask for justification, or they reject it, and you have to go back in and do it again. So we don't push deals through without having some type of granular under the hood look at what the actual migration strategy is going to be. Cost. Cloud services are expensive. After a year or so, I can just buy my own hardware and change it myself. I'm not going to spend much time on this one, but two things you never, ever, ever, ever want to do when going into a cloud opportunity is saying, I can save you money. And here's why. A lot of times whenever we're coming in here and doing this, we're looking to solve some type of problem. We're bringing some type of new technology to help fix a problem or fill a gap. So if we're bringing in new technologies, it's going to be a little more expensive, right? Even if they did it themselves, they brought in more technology to be more expensive. So status quo versus what we're looking at doing is very, very seldomly going to be similar in what the services are. There's going to be some type of additional or extra or better technology or offering that's going to be layered on top of there. It's going to change it. So we just have to make sure that everybody understands that. We look at it kind of, side by side, and then the business decision has to have some type of financial analysis around it for a company. But that's where we can kind of help doing that and help. And plus, there's obviously the predictable costs, staying away from large checks, scope creep, things of that nature is all stuff that we can avoid. But I mean, rule number one: don't go in there and say, "Oh, you're looking to move." We can save you money if you move your server infrastructure to the cloud, because it might not be true. It could be, but very seldomly it's not, especially because we're going to be bringing in more technology. I mentioned Microsoft earlier. Sorry for getting kind of quick here, but what we're seeing, I don't know if everybody's aware of what Microsoft is doing, but Microsoft is basically forcing everybody to go to Office 365. They're making Outlook 2010 in October of 2020. It's no longer going to be supported. We understand that you can no longer buy volume licenses if you have under 1,000 users. So where typically people used to go, they had an Exchange server and they could buy some cows and they could buy some Office licensing and install it and put it on an image. They can't do that anymore. Microsoft won't even sell it to them. Larger companies, with enterprise agreements and have the volume licensing above 1,000 users, they can still do it. But I've already seen the number go from 500 to 1,000 in like 6 months, and it's going to continue to go up. So Microsoft is forcing everybody to go to 365. I mean, it's one of the biggest shifts in the internet really has ever seen. So, I mean, we've got a very, very compelling package that we put together for 365 that includes things like free migration. It's full migration in terms of what we're doing, but it's not costing them anything to do the migration. So be aware of that and know that. But you got to have those conversations. I mean, if you have a 250 user business that you're working with, and they still have their own Office suite, they're not going to be able to upgrade. If they're on 2010, they got a year until that's no longer supported anymore. So be aware of that stuff. Know that shift's happening, because this is hands down the biggest shift we've ever seen. The amount of volume of deals that I see come across day in and day out on 365 is mind-blowing, and everybody's doing it. So, and there's really not a lot of people that are really good at doing it. So when you come to RapidScale, first of all, standalone 365, we have a great offering for it. However, we can also do other things, right? You're not ready to go full cloud yet. You don't want desktop as a service. Crawl, walk, run, right? Let's get the 365 taken care of. This was a primary example of this. I know we're about 4 and change minutes left from 30, but we had a company that was looking to. They were with an MSP. The MSP was going to be going out of business, so it was essentially going to have to shut their cloud down. So they needed to find somewhere to go. The first thing that we took care of was the 365. Their Exchange was coming into life. They needed to do that. We took care of the 365. We then went in there, and this was a cost. This was a cost scenario where if you don't open it up and have the conversation, you can miss out on an opportunity. We were sitting in the room with him, and he's like, "Listen, I think desktop as a service is great for our business. It's a lot of disruption for our employees, so I'm worried about the disruption and changing the way they're doing business, and I'm also, a little bit concerned about the actual costs associated too, because it's a lot more than we're paying today." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fair." I was like, "But what did we knew? We knew that they had to migrate out of that MSP. So if we felt that DAS was holding us up," and I was like, basically my response was, "Then why don't we just do what you're doing today? So let's worry about what we can control, right? Which is, you're doing things one way today. You're concerned about additional costs. You're concerned about changing the behavior of your employees. So we don't have to do either one of those things. We can keep it pretty much net because we're going, from one hosting platform to another. But we're going to give them the ability to roll out desktop as a service in the future. So minimal change to the employees, to their culture and what they're doing. They get what they need, so we solve the problem. And they also developed a roadmap for the future. If they want to decide to go with DAS, they can with us, because we can do both. So it was a pretty textbook scenario. And let's just say the partner was very happy, because he was getting a lot of kickback and a lot of objections. And then we sat down with the customer like, "All right, we can figure this out." And essentially we did. So again, I just kind of went through this slide around what it was. Okay. That sums it up. I know I got kind of quick at the end. I'm sorry. But any questions, Summer or Nikki?
I have one, and if you guys have any others over the next 5 minutes, feel free to chat them over. But other than Office 365, what services are you seeing as the first steps into the cloud for customers who are maybe intimidated or hesitant still?
Well, one's obvious, it's SD-WAN, and that's not necessarily a stepping stone to the cloud. That's a stepping stone into RapidScale with our VeloCloud offering. Other than that, security has been a big one. Security and backups. Backup. I don't want to say backup and DR because they're two totally different things, but those are two. Everybody wants to talk about security. Again, it's an objection, but it's also something that people are looking to make better, and it's easy to make it better. So I mean, we have managed DDoS mitigation as well as SIM, so we can get in there and have those conversations around security because people are very open. Even Mimecast, right? Mimecast is a security, is a filter for the emails. So I mean, that's a level of security for the biggest core line of business application out there, which is email. So I would say security and then backup and DR because it's very easy to set up backups and just get that data off site. It's a stepping stone into building redundancy and eliminating single points of failure on site. And it's at this point, it's obviously, pretty inexpensive and makes sense.
And another one just came in. What is the minimum user count for Office 365?
50. Unless there's other services that come along with it. Okay, so if it's standalone 365, 50, and this is for all our own sanity. Trust me, you guys are, you're not working for free. 365 isn't exactly a high margin product. It's a stepping stone, land and expand type thing. So 50 is, long answer short is that. But if there's other services, hosting services, things of that nature, that obviously changes the game. I mean, we have 20, 25 user businesses, full management. We're hosting their applications, maybe doing desktop as a service, and we also do 365 as well.
And I believe we are good to go, Lauder.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for the time. Thanks for joining. I know it was a pretty quick 30 minutes, but I hope you were able to get something out of it. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions, if you're running into certain situations where you're getting these objections. We hear them all day long in every different way you could possibly hear them. So, let us help you out. We do this for a living. Don't feel like you're alone, but certainly, leverage us. And, again, thank you for the time. And look forward to hearing from everybody. So have a great Wednesday and a great Q4. Thank you.